Welcome back. Before we get into our discussion with Senator Linturi and, of course, Honorable Ngunjiri Wambugu, we're getting a lot of your feedback and want to put that up on the screen right now. Okay, All Kenyan 2 says, I elect a member of parliament to fight for my interest in parliament. Instead, he or she becomes loyal to a party that his disloyalty may cost him. Do I really need to even vote in the first place? Okay, that's All Kenyan 2. What else do we have here? Just Otula 2 says, 48 laws of power. 6. Always say less than necessary. If you know, you know. I'm not sure who he's referring to there. Maybe Honorable Duale, former majority leader. And Sam Theuri is asking, can you ask Ngunjiri Wambugu if it's true that COVID-19 attacks in the 31st minute? What a question there. I'll be posing that to Honorable Wambugu. And on SMS here, Josiah Githinji from Kabete says, Kenyans must say no to attempts to return Kenya to single-partyism. Let me bring in my guest now, and I'll start with you, Honorable Ngunjiri Wambugu. A question has been posed to you about whether COVID-19 attacks in the 31st minute. But before that, of course, your thoughts on the removal of Aden Duale as majority leader yesterday, bearing in mind you confidently told a Citizen TV crew that Aden Duale was going nowhere.
I don't understand at what point I told Citizen crew that Aden Duale was going nowhere.
We did an interview.
If I remember correctly, actually. And
Go ahead.
Yes, I did an interview, and what I said was that whether Aden Duale was going to stay or not depended on whether he still had the confidence of the party leadership. At no point. Remember, I had categorically said several times that Aden Duale needed to go. Mm-hmm. Then we went for a PG where he was, the president decided he was going to keep him. That was on 2nd of June. And then I held the position that whether or not Aden Duale was going to survive was going to depend entirely on whether he still had the confidence of the party leadership. If he had that confidence, he was going to stay. If he didn't have the confidence, he was going to leave. And I suspect, as far as I'm concerned, the fact that he left means that he had lost the confidence of the party leadership.
Okay, so in terms of telling us what exactly tilted the scales against him, you don't have the finer details, do you? Or do you mind shedding light? Why do you think?
I think what tilted the scales against him, of course, included the fact that 121 members of parliament had signed a petition saying they did not have confidence in him. So I suspect that is what tilted the scales against him.
Okay. Honorable Linturi, also thank you for joining us. Your thoughts on what happened today, and many obviously asking this new direction that President Uhuru Kenyatta seems to be taking. What is prompting it?
Mora, to me, I think is a very sad moment for this country, because wherever or whatever is happening in this country is something that none of us would have really expected with the new constitution or with the 2010 constitution. Because our 2010 constitution required has to be politically tolerant to the divergent views and ideas. And the Constitution also required us to appreciate that there is freedom of expression, there is a freedom of association. And moreover, political parties, for example, in my view, when we remember what we did in the year, I think, 2012, coming up with that particular law to ensure that political parties were funded by the public, that means from the exchequer, depending on the number of votes that the political parties were able to garner in terms of the presidential and the membership of parliament, was basically out of the reasoning that we required to have political parties owned by the public. We required to get this notion that political parties were outfits of a few individuals, and for that matter, for ownership, the public was required to be part and parcel of the institutions that are given the mandate to seek power or authority to govern them. So where we have lost it, I think, is because other than living to the spirit of the law that was created, that was enacted, to ensure the full participation by all the people in the management of political parties, we've handed or we've degenerated to a situation where political parties have become institutions being run by individuals, institutions whereby even elected leaders have no say, have no opportunity to give divergent of views or ideas, even to the extent where even when political leaders or people that have acquired positions of leadership through election and who contribute even monthly subscription to parties for purposes of management of those parties are not given an opportunity to express themselves. And this is what is happening, and it's really a very, very sad moment. And I only want to tell those people that are happy, because they can be hand those people that do not think that time will come when they will lose that clout or the influence that they pendle around. When that time is gone, is when they will realize the kind of disservice they are doing this country, because we must or we shouldn't be nurturing or growing institutions for purposes of good governance and for purposes of ensuring that there is freedom that we are trying to give ourselves by virtue of the 2010 Constitution, which we promulgated in a referendum.
Honorable Linturi, you seem to be issuing a warning to your colleagues within Jubilee that was issued to you by the opposition a year or two ago. My question is this: what is the end game in all this? These complaints started a year and a half ago. Before that, it seems all was rosy in the Jubilee House. Where do you think the party leader is taking the party with these moves that you seem very uncomfortable with?
I have a lot of respect for my party leader, and because he's a guy I have known for a long time. I have been a member of I became a member of parliament through KANU, and he was my leader in the house before he left to join Kibaki, and before he left us again when we were handed over a party by Moi with 67 members of parliament, and may God rest his soul in peace. And the next election when he left us, the party went down to 14 members of parliament, and then formed the TNA together, then joined up with URP. Then we came again to dissolve all these parties to form Jubilee. So when you look at the kind of parties we've had all through, you will realize that these parties have just been there, and the leadership that has been there has only been about to acquiring power for a particular period of time, and when they are done with it, then we forget those particular parties. I remember because I played a critical role and part when we are coming up with the Jubilee, and the reasoning and the ideas beyond Jubilee was to bring the country together, was to ensure that there was peace and stability in this country, so that, and we understand that the reason why that was to happen is because there shouldn't be any shedding of blood in this country or destruction of property or lives on account of political competition, and the reason to why we thought the country would have all been brought together through the Jubilee Party, because this was really the whole idea that brought us together. And now, Mwaura,
I'm hoping you're answering my question now.
That remains our spirit. We are committed to that. We are ready to support the president to achieve his unity agenda. But I think we will require really to argue a case whereby there shouldn't be consultation, there shouldn't be a possibility of us give those that have divergent view in terms of how things are being done to be given an opportunity to express their ideas. Democracy requires that the majority will have their way and the minority will have their say. Let us be listened. Let us be given an opportunity to share our own frustrations, our own ideas, because we believe in the manifesto of Jubilee. We believe in the spirit under which the leader of the party is leading in terms of bringing about cohesion, national cohesion and unity in the country, because together I think we can make it.
Fair enough. Let me allow Honorable Ngunjiri to also weigh in on this. The end game, what next? One viewer asking tonight, what next? It seems these changes are almost over and done with. What next?
Thank you, Wahiga. I think the first thing I need to disabuse my colleague and my senior, Senator Linturi, is the whole issue of democracy. Wahiga, you work for citizens. You are a Kenyan. You have your democratic rights. But I assure you, if you started exercising your democratic rights in terms of speaking the way you want, and then you started speaking against the interests of citizens, there would be a cost to pay. Even if you work for a public institution, which is actually funded by public resources, there are rules and regulations that determine how that public institution operates. And for you to be part of that public institution, for you to enjoy the benefits of that public institution, you must follow the rules and regulations. You cannot claim that you have rights that allow you to undermine the institution that put you in office. We have people who have undermined the party that actually give them the ticket that they were elected on, and they went to parliament or went to Senate, and then when they are challenged because of undermining the party or going against the interests of the party, they start claiming that their democratic rights are being infringed upon. Yes, we have democratic rights, but your democratic rights operate within certain parameters. When you're in a political party, if, for example, you're in ODM and you start supporting the interests of Jubilee, or you go again, or you support the interests of another party, you can actually be held to account if there is no arrangement between the two parties. So for my colleague, Senator Linturi, to say that they have been punished because they're exercising their democratic rights is to be disingenuous. We have even a child knows when you're in school, you have to follow the rules of that school or you get kicked out. And you still have rights. It doesn't take away your democratic space, doesn't take away your democratic rights. So this argument that democracy is being attacked because people are being held to account or being asked to be accountable for their actions and their words, you cannot go, for example, where a political party like Jubilee says that they are supporting the handshake, they are supporting BBI. You're a member of Jubilee and you go and attack it at every public space that you get. And then when you are challenged on it, or when you face disciplinary action for it, you say your democratic space is being infringed upon. This is actually to take Kenyans for a ride, to imagine Kenyans are idiots, and it is wrong. I think it's important for our colleagues, especially for my colleague who is my senior and who I have a lot of respect for, to be honest when he's speaking to Kenyans. We cannot tell Kenyans that our democratic rights are being infringed upon. Even in parliament, we have rules and regulations. There are things you cannot say in parliament which you can say outside. Mm-hmm. And when you're in parliament, you can't say that your democratic space is being infringed upon because you have been stopped, for example, from walking into parliament dressed in a shirt without a tie. That is a rule that has been set by parliament, and you have the right to wear a shirt without a tie, but you can't wear a shirt without a tie in parliament. So let us not take Kenyans for a ride. Let's not imagine Kenyans are idiots when we tell them that our democratic rights are being infringed upon. Okay. It is also important for us to say that you cannot just say that you're supporting the president and his agenda by words. We need to see it in action. We need to see it in parliament. If the president wants certain changes or certain policies passed in parliament to execute something that he wants, we need to see that support. Mm-hmm. Don't just tell us on television that you're supporting the president, and then when you go to the ground or when you go to parliament, you actually don't support the president. Or we see that your actions are not supporting the president. Okay. Finally, and this is very, very critical, I think it is important for us to also be very honest. Nobody is being punished as an individual. You have the right, and the president has said this many times. If you do not want to support him, to do what he's promised Kenyans he would do. And remember, Wahiga, all of us who are in Jubilee went campaigning on the mandate, on the manifesto of Jubilee. The vision carrier of Jubilee is the president. He is the only person who has a national vision for Jubilee, for the country. My interest as a member of parliament of Nyeri, to get jobs for my people, to get them healthcare, to get them education, mm-hmm. all of them are aligned to the manifesto of Jubilee. That is why I support the president. That's why I support the party leader, because my people will benefit. So you cannot say that you are going to remove yourself from the manifesto of Jubilee and say you shouldn't be asked questions. You promised the Kenyan people, you promised the people who voted for you, that you'll align yourself to the Jubilee party. You'll align yourself to the party leadership.
Okay, thank you. I had another question for you, Honorable Ngunjiri, but let me allow Honorable Linturi. Go ahead, Honorable Linturi. I want to give you a chance to respond. Go ahead.
Yes, Maura, because that can't go without a rebuttal. Because I have said in many times in these shows that the politicians are very dishonest people, and Kenyans must be very worried, especially when with balloting boxes, they must look at the character and the kind of people that they elect. I would want to, with a lot of respect, tremendous respect to my good friend Ngunjiri, because he has alluded to a fact that we do not support the party, we are not loyal. Very few months ago, there was a by-election in Kibera. In Kibera, where Jubilee and a candidate, and Mwaura was supporting a candidate from a different political party.
That
we did not see him go through, or any other members that are from Jubilee supporting different a candidate from a different political party, going through the disciplinary processes that are being taken through others. So that is dishonesty.
That is not true.
Honorable Ngunjiri, let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead, Honorable Linturi.
I've not finished with Wambugu.
Yes.
Wambugu, with a lot of respect, I believe that support is not sycophancy. And when I talk about democratic space, people to hire their ideas because it's provided in the Constitution. It cannot only be that you enjoy it because you are in power today, and when you are out of power, then you are denied that kind of opportunity. I want to remind them in 2013. 2013, Wambugu was the greatest crusader when he was an UNDM activist to ensure or to convince the international community through his articles, through his blogs, how Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were not fit to run for political office because of the crimes that were associated or committed against humanity and the cases that were facing in the ICC. That is Wambugu for you. And this is the Wambugu that appears now to be giving us lectures on how to be loyal, on how to ensure that we support the president's agenda. I've been a member of parliament for a long time. I can tell you in the Senate or in the National Assembly before I left the Senate, there is no single bill, there is no single agenda of the president that we never passed because we believe in the Jubilee manifesto, we believe in giving him the necessary support to ensure that he has necessary legislative mechanisms and authority to run this country. That is what I'm elected to do, and I know my job, or anybody else knows the job. When the people of Meru went to the ballot to vote Mithika as senator or any other member, they did not vote us because we didn't have ideas or minds. They voted us because they knew where there was need to have the evangelist ideas will be there to offer the same. And secondly, Mwaura, let me tell him so that he knows the kind of disservice they are doing to this country. All the institutions of oversight in this country have all been compromised. I've been compromised to the extent that when we want to ask questions, you can't ask questions because the person that's supposed to lead the oversight in the National Assembly, because it's done by committees, is appointed. Before, we used to elect our own people, the chairman of committees were elected by members of those committees, and we remained firm. I am surprised that Mwaura Ngunjiri wants to argue a case. I was a chairman of Committee on Investment when President Kibaki was the president of this country, and we shall forever miss him. Because when I was chairman and I was accused and taken before him for doing a report on the RVR, the Rift Valley release. And it is there, the Public Investments Committee, the 16th report signed by me. I indicted 4 ministers that were in Parliament, moved a motion in Parliament, were adopted by Parliament. Some of them are serving today in government, some of them in very senior positions, despite the fact that we sent these people do not qualify to occupy political office. Some of them are the people that already become the leaders of majority. Let us be honest for once. If somebody has an history that is tainted, then you cannot really be telling us that you can be lecturing us how we are doing things wrong when those people that are supposed or have an history that is not, or issues that are pending and clear are the ones that are supposed to lead the cause against corruption. It is not correct.
Okay. Honorable Ntuntu, let me give Honorable Ngunjiri a chance to respond. But also, I had another question for Honorable Ngunjiri. Maybe you should start with that. What next? That's what Kenyans want to know tonight.
Okay, I mean, what next is actually easy to answer, Wahiga. But then, of course, I found myself smiling to myself as I listened to Honorable Linturi talk about honesty. When I know about the history we have in Parliament about him, because when we go into Parliament, you also study about the things that people who have been in Parliament before you have done, people who have brought motions to Parliament and then pulled them out at the last minute, and things like that. But I do not want to get into personal attacks at this moment. But it's important for me to explain to him that first and foremost, I never went to campaign in Kibera. I had him calling me Mwaura. Maybe he was confusing me with somebody else. But I personally never went to campaign in Kibera. I decided that the Kibera by-election was best dealt with by people from Nairobi. I did not go to campaign for any candidate in Kibera. The candidate we had, and the president has said that very many times, our candidate lost, and we accepted that loss, and we supported. So it is important.
Let him finish.
But you said he suggested that I went. And I wanted to clarify that for the record. And it's important also for me to deal. I mean, he's dealt with very many personal issues, many things that go back into the 2013. I mean, if I wanted to go back into Mheshimiwa Linturi's past, I'm sure I would come up with stuff that he would not want. So I do not want to go back into his past. I want to talk about what it is that we are looking at, what we are looking for.
Even if what we are looking for.
Okay, Honorable Linturi, you had your chance.
I personally do not want to go back. I mean, he has a right to talk about that if he wants. You asked a very good question. What next? I think the first thing that the president needed to do was clean house. It is important. I have listened to Senator Linturi talk about institutions being compromised. And it is interesting. I expected Wahiga you'd ask him who has compromised these institutions. Who is he pointing an accusing finger at? Because he needs to tell us who is this he's saying has compromised the institutions. He is a member of the ruling party. He's a senator of high standing. He has been with us, as he says, he has been in parliament for a long time. Who is this who he's pointing a finger at as being the one who is compromising the institutions that we have, the public institutions we have in this country? Could he by any chance be pointing that finger at the President of the Republic of Kenya? Who is his boss? Because, I mean, this is where you start having to ask hard questions. Who is he accusing of compromising the institutions that we have? I personally think the fact that we are in parliament, the fact that we have been able, the leadership of parties is something we have to have party discipline. You cannot be a committee chair, for example, and you are going against the wishes of your party. You are there to push the agenda of the party that made you a committee chair. If you cannot do that, then please stop being a committee chair, be an ordinary member, and that way you're allowed to actually challenge whatever you have. Okay. You cannot be a committee chair who is expected to be representing the party position on issues, because we are in parliament representing different parties, and different parties have different things that they believe in. For example, we are pushing for the issue of unity in the country. We're pushing for the issue of ensuring that the next election is peaceful. Why would you fight something like that?
Okay. You still haven't answered my question, though, Honorable Wambugu. The what next?
Yes.
You said it's a simple one.
Then you... first and foremost...
Yes.
I think what has happened, and this is something I am happy about as a Jubilee member who has been insisting for the longest time that we needed to get our house in order, that we needed to be able to streamline ourselves, to be able to focus. Okay. We had too many disjointed voices that were actually voices in authority in parliament, for example, which were leading us in different directions. I am extremely happy that the party has finally streamlined us. We now have a leadership in parliament that is focused on ensuring that we do what it is that we promised the people of Kenya we would do. I suspect we're going to have a much more focused conversation about Big Four, for example. I suspect we're going to have a much more focused conversation about the fight against corruption. Remember, we started fighting against corruption, and the Senate and members of the Senate, including a colleague of Linturi, who was a majority leader at that time, had a challenge on the issue of the lifestyle audit. So we now can be able to talk about fighting corruption from one page in terms of our leadership in the party. Okay. We can talk about uniting Kenyans from one page as a leadership and as members of the party. We can talk about implementing Big Four from one page. I suspect that is what's going to happen. And I also suspect that this clean house...
And all these things were not possible.
This house cleaning is going to extend even to parliament, even to the government itself.
Okay. I still have more questions for you, but let me allow Honorable Linturi to come in. Linturi, you are being asked who has compromised care by Honorable Wambugu. Do you care to respond to that?
Maura, yes, I can comfortably answer that question, and I want the country and every listener to get very worried when you find the executive and national and parliament going to bed together. And I don't think I really need to be able to explain so much, because Wambugu has explained that if you are a member of parliament and you are not following up the serving of the interests of the political party, then you have no business. Maura, I would want to remind Wambugu that our constitutional architecture, as is, requires us as a parliament to be independent of the executive because of the oversight function that we carry out on the executive. And for that matter, and if you look at what our mandate is and what our rules requires us to keep the executive on toes. And keeping the executive on toes does not require to have a parliament that must always be agreeing with the national with the executive. And if anybody else has not known this, moreover, when Parliament is supposed to be discharging that particular duty, the requirement that I believe is the correct situation that we must always be cognizant of is that not anybody in power does not like being asked questions. And that aspect of separation of power between the national government and the national executive and the other arm of government of the judiciary as its own roles so that we are able to discharge the duty of the mwananchi in the best manner that is possible. But if Parliament will have its leadership that is at is a call away from the executive on matters that touch on the well-being of the public, then the mwananchi has a serious problem. When we have a judiciary that is strained of finances, and most of the issues that touch on the mwananchi cannot be addressed because there are no finances or no enough budget. That is a direct way of telling the judiciary that you cannot perform your mandate or function because of A, B, C, D. When Parliament, as his, cannot rise up one particular day and say, despite the fact that the property has come up with a certain proposal, and by virtue of application of our mind, that the proposals from the national executive are not in tandem and are not for the best interest of the public, then it means there is nothing that we are doing for the public, for the people of this Republic of Kenya. I want to tell the people why we must be loyal and remain permanently loyal to the people. As Parliament, because we are the people that are letting this country down, and the people down. When you look at Section 2 of the Constitution of Kenya, the oath of office that we take as members of Parliament is to swear allegiance with loyalty to the people and the Republic. There is no other people, those other people that swear allegiance to the people and the Republic are not the ministers. And for that matter,
allow me to ask a question.
The oath is crafted in that way so that it is known that our first principle and loyalty lies on the people that voted us and gave us power to exercise it on their behalf. And the event that we did not do it by virtue of Article 1, then these people can exercise their power and authority.
Senator, let me ask you this.
So we are
Senator, hang on, Senator. Senator, let me ask my question. You did not join Jubilee the other day. We've been talking about a party that has been there, that you have been a part of since 2013. What has changed? Were you able, because I hear you complaining that oversighting the executive will now be an issue, we can't ask questions, etc. What has changed in that time? And of course, your call now that you're speaking out on behalf of the common man. What has changed? Is it that previously you could, now you can't? Senator, what has changed?
Politics is dynamic, Mwaura.
Yes.
And the dynamics of politics have made a lot of changes. And probably, even if one wanted to really emasculate Parliament and there was the recognition that probably one will be running for an election and do not want to burn bridges, then one would go slow. And I can tell you, there was some bit of freedom in the exercise of our mandate because you could at least push a mwananchi-driven agenda. But honestly, I don't believe that I should be suffocated and I should not speak out my mind. I should not be harmed for purposes of being seen to be loyal. Probably many other people will struggle to demonstrate how loyal they are because probably they have come in too late and they have some certain history. But if we are the people that probably believed in this cause of Jubilee, we are the first founders of Jubilee. We have the original ideas of what Jubilee was intended to achieve. Then it must be understood that at least there is nothing much that I really know quite a lot, and for that matter, I am a carrier of the original idea. So when we hear people telling us we are not loyal, the Constitution does not talk about being loyal or the other to fake being loyal to an individual or to a party. Our loyalty first of all, is to the people. We have a lot of respect for the leadership of this country and the party leadership of this country. But people must understand loyalty is not sycophancy.
Fair enough.
And we cannot be saying now that for us not to be disciplined, then we must always be saying yes, 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 yes. Okay. I don't think this is not what was
let Honorable Ngunjiri come in before we take a quick break. You sounded like you wanted to respond to what he said.
Yes, I did. I keep remembering that Senator Linturi is one who's talked about honesty. It's important for us to be honest. First and foremost, Wahiga, the leader of the executive, who is the president, is also the party leader of the Jubilee party. When we went to elections, we had people competing. We had Kalonzo Musyoka, we had Raila, we had Uhuru primarily, and we had other people. Each of them represented a party, and if that person had won, his party would have formed the majority in parliament, would have been the majority leader, and things like that. This is because once you become the leader of the executive, your government is implementing the manifesto that you sold to the people of Kenya so that they could elect you and your members of parliament. So for Senator Linturi to be telling us that once you go to parliament, you're now supposed to divorce yourself from the party leader who is the head of the executive and start challenging the things that he's doing. Remember, unless he does something that is against the manifesto that we sold to the people of Kenya, our work as Jubilee members of parliament is to support him to implement that manifesto. That is why he got elected. He got elected because he promised. He got elected in a political process. He got elected as the head of a political party. He got elected with members of parliament and senators and MCAs. And we were all supposed to join together to support him, ensure that we delivered the manifesto we promised to the people of Kenya. You then cannot get into office and then start divorcing yourself from the process that got you into office. When I listen to Senator Linturi, he's speaking like he's no longer a member of Jubilee. He's speaking like he no longer has attachments or responsibilities or obligations to Jubilee or to the party leadership, who is actually the president and the leader of the executive. Of course, as parliament, we are expected to oversight the executive, but we are also expected to help the executive implement the things that we promised as a party. And because we can pass laws, and then the executive can actually operationalize these laws. So you cannot come and say that once you get into parliament, you're now divorced from the executive. We are all just two sides of the same coin, and we come from the same party. We are pushing the same agenda. Unless Senator Linturi wants to tell us that when President Uhuru Kenyatta became president, or when party leader Uhuru Kenyatta became president, he stopped now implementing the manifesto of Jubilee, of which is a party, and started implementing something else. As far as I'm concerned, what the president is doing is implementing the manifesto that we promised the people of Kenya that we would implement.
Okay.
Led by the issue of uniting Kenyans across the political divide. Because even me, as a member of parliament of Nyeri town, I represent all the members of Nyeri town, the ones who voted for me, the ones who are in Jubilee, the ones who are not in Jubilee, all of them. So once I get into office, I have to keep pushing the agenda that got me into office, which was the one I promised them when I was campaigning.
Okay.
You cannot have a situation where once you get elected, you now move away from the promises that got you elected, and then you start speaking like you're not a member of the party that took you into office. That is being very dishonest of Senator Linturi.
Honorable Wambugu, before we take that break, a viewer here asking the difference between party loyalty. Honorable Linturi, I'll give you a chance after the break. Just a quick one for Honorable Wambugu. The difference between party loyalty and sycophancy is a thin line. How do you know that you've not crossed? Of course it is. I agree. How do you know that you've not crossed over? That's what Ryan is asking tonight.
The difference between party loyalty and sycophancy is this. Party loyalty means that once you have what is called universal responsibility. I cannot come outside to start fighting the party from outside. However, within the party, we disagree. We don't always agree on everything. I don't agree with everything that happens, but I don't come to fight the party about it in public.
Okay.
That is the difference.
We need to take that break. When we come back, the future of Senate, Honorable Linturi, I'll give you will have first right of response when we come back. The future of Senate, Parliament.
I don't lose my thoughts.
Okay, it has to be really short. Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to remind Wambugu that the fact that I'm independent-minded does not mean that I do not support the Jubilee manifesto. And Jubilee is a party that I formed. I will not get out of Jubilee. We are not getting out of Jubilee. And that is why we contribute every month money to make sure and to ensure Jubilee runs. What we are asking for is internal democracy. Let us be allowed to speak out our mind. You don't call us for meetings, and then when you come for meetings, you don't give us an opportunity to talk. You only lecture us, and that's the end.
Honorable Linturi, you say you're not leaving Jubilee, and you seem to be speaking on behalf of a group. I know I need to take this break. Honorable Linturi, yes. what is Jubilee Asili? We've heard of talk of Jubilee Asili. What is that?
Jubilee Asili is a creation of the media. I read it in the Nation and the Standard. And I would just want to really kindly ask you people not to blow things out of proportion. What I only know about is that there is an office where like-minded people have decided that they must hire for those people that cannot access the Jubilee and the quotas to sit down, brainstorm, and think, and to try at least to comfort one another. And that is not what I know. And I don't think I am... I would be wrong to say, if you've been kicked out by your father from the main bedroom, then you shouldn't get to sit in the kitchen or somewhere else with your other brothers and sisters for you at least to see how you can get back to your father and convince him why he is becoming discriminatory or why he should have to give you an opportunity to explain yourself before he takes the kind of decision or radical position that he would want to. That's what I know, and that's the position.
So you've not been there, you're not a member of Jubilee Asili. You're calling it a creation of media, but clearly it's more than that.
There is nothing like Jubilee Asili that I am aware of, and I am sure even if you were to check, there is no party that is registered by the name Jubilee Asili. Okay. Check. If there is such a thing, then I will bet.
Okay. All right, let's take that break. I think we need to. When we come back, the future and also the Waiguru impeachment trial. What are the thoughts of these two gentlemen? We look at that and, of course, your feedback when we return. You're watching Newsnight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.